You got Mac and Mac here with you on Birds 365. We are lucky enough to get Andrew DiCecco up with us from InsideTheBirds.com and their podcast and covering the Eagles on a day-in, day-out basis. I tried to get him earlier. We go, sorry, Joe, going to be a practice. No can do. I said, well, that's good. When we get you on the show afterwards, you'll know that much more. So we're looking to tap into your knowledge today, DiCecco. I want to get a read from you on something that we discussed in the first hour. Will there be at any point a conversation this year? When I say this year, I mean from today straight through till whenever the Eagles season ends, hopefully with a parade. Will there be a conversation about a contract extension for Hassan Reddick?
I think there has to be, Jody, to be honest with you. When you look at what Hassan Reddick has done in his body of work, especially the past few seasons, really consistent pass rusher, constantly. He's a top three, maybe even a top five, maybe even a top three pass rusher. And I think that he is someone that when he's utilized properly, you're seeing what he's able to do with his skill set. I think he still has room to even improve. He's chasing 20 sacks this year. I think that's certainly a tall task given the plethora of weapons they have as pass rushers. But I think that he's going to continue to get better. So when you look at it in those terms, I think that would warrant that.
By the way, Josh Sweat mentioned 15 or 20 sacks as his goal. I
guess they're getting that 70 again.
Yeah. That's what I said.
Getting 20 and Josh is getting 15.
They can't get 100.
70.
Yeah.
They can't get 100.
I kind of dismiss them getting 70 sacks again because it's only been done 3 other times in the history of professional football. So history would tell you, you're probably not going to do that again. But I kind of say that jokingly. Could they do that again? Could they get the 70? I mean, this defensive front, Andrew, is ridiculously loaded to the point where I think it becomes a problem, a nice problem, but it does become a problem getting everybody on the field and keeping everybody happy.
Yeah, I mean, Derek Barnett, a former first-round pick who's still just 27 years old, is your 5th edge rusher. So, I mean, that right there speaks to the just the amount of weapons, and they can throw a tidal wave of pass rushers at you. I just don't know how they're going to get everybody on the field. I mean, there's going to be some talent, unfortunately, John, that is going to have to be inactive as they sort of figure out how the rotation is going to be in the early going.
Here's the only way they get 70 sacks. If the offense is as good as we think it can be. If they're continually up 28-7,
yeah, you got to be up in the fourth
just
quarter.
Pin your ears back and go, boys. What the hell? We're up by 3 touchdowns in the second quarter. Yeah. If that's the case, I think the offense will be the biggest reason that the defense can get 70 sacks again.
Yeah. It's a good point. You got to be in a certain situation to pin your ears back to get those kinds of numbers. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about that offense, Andrew. They look good. The first team looks good. But we kind of talked about Cam Jurgens. I don't know if you were listening in the green room. It's kind of weird to me. Like every time it's brought up, Nick Sirianni kind of begs off. Well, it's not over. The competition. I don't want to dismiss the other guys. Well, I'm at every practice. I've seen every first team rep. I've yet to see anybody other than Cam Jurgens get a first team rep. Where's this competition? Why are the Eagles so hesitant to name Cam Jurgens the starter? And you don't even have to name him the starter because technically they don't name starters. They don't name Nakobe Dean a starter, but he's the starter. Why did they seem to bend over backwards with Cam and say, oh, it's a competition?
I would say probably to guard against complacency, to make sure that every day he's working on some aspect of his game and he's bringing, giving 100% and kind of on edge, always knowing that the job they could say, hey, Tyler, we're going to go with you today. So I think when you go into camp knowing that you're the starter, you it alleviates some pressure and you maybe aren't as hungry as you maybe would be if you know that every day you're vying for that top spot on the depth chart.
And I asked John this, and love to get your take too. Assuming Jurgens wins the job, if he hasn't already won it, but then week 6 or 7, Kelsey's going to miss a game, or he's going to miss most of a game. He'll go in, take the first snap, so he keeps his consecutive game streak in play, but he can't really play. Brett Toth going to be the backup center? Do you think they move Juergens back over and throw Steen into the deep end of the pool when he couldn't win the competition against a center for the right guard position? How do you think they juggle the line if there's an injury to Kelsey?
Well, John can speak to this. I certainly don't think it'll be Brett Toth as the backup center, Jody. I think that in that instance, you would probably see Cam Juergens slide into center. And then depending on how long Kelsey would be out, I think it would behoove the Eagles to plug in a guy like Jack Driscoll at right guard in the interim, because he's played it before. And instead of having to, rely upon a rookie to be able to help, an offensive line, because, all it takes is one piece for it not to work. And I think that Jack Driscoll's proven that he can be a guy that can steadily step in there, provide some competent snaps. But I don't know that I would put Steed in there in that instance.
Yeah, I mean, if Kelsey were out for a significant period of time, it's 100% Cam Juergens. I mean, 110%. We can make up numbers. That's how confident I would be. Now, if it's one game, then you start to say, well, maybe you can persevere with Toth, and you don't want to move Cam because he's learning the position. Then I could see a bigger discussion. Ultimately, I still think they would lean towards moving Cam. And even though Jeff Stoutland doesn't like to affect multiple positions, he's just so much better at center than Brett Toth, who's doing, he's learning. He's not a natural center. I think he's going to make the football team. But, yeah, long-term, no question, Cam Juergens. Short-term, you might not want to affect two different positions, but that would be a more interesting discussion. Offensive line as a whole, I'll go there, Andrew. Depth is not what it once was. Jack's solid. Dennis Kelly still can play a little bit, even though he's aging. We mentioned Brett Toth. That kind of falls off a little bit. We kind of always say, well, Jeff will find somebody. He'll develop somebody. Any concerned over the depth if injuries start piling up?
More so before they got Dennis Kelly. But then again, Dennis Kelly is someone who's been a journeyman. He is aging, as you said, and he does have a litany of injuries in his past. So relying on him may not be the soundest plan of attack. That being said, I mean, I know they really like Brett Toth. There's not a lot there beyond that. Jack Driscoll's a steady guy, but not somebody that you really want to rely upon for a full slate of games. And Sua Opeta's primarily, he's just a guard. So, I mean, you're really limited. I think that there's a guy who's undrafted named Trevor Reed, who's really interesting from Louisville, but he's more of a practice squad project for Stoutland, I would say.
Yeah, he's got to get stronger. He's just not.
Yeah, exactly. He's light. Yeah. He's light, and he's 6'4", and he played tackle at Louisville, so I think he will probably be a guard at the pro level. But I think that he has some interesting traits that I think Stoutland could develop. But as of right now, there isn't anybody that you could really say further down the depth chart this year that would constitute as formidable depth.
Yeah, John's mentioned Trevor Reed a couple of times. The guy he thinks that Stoutland would like to work with. There isn't somebody who's going to pick him up if the Eagles don't keep him on the 53. You don't think that that's the case, John? You think they'll get ticked off because somebody else picks them off?
Well,
they try and get him through.
That happened to Toth, and they were not happy. They thought they could get Brett through. But for people that forget, he was the first player who sort of got that army deferment, military deferment type thing, and they changed the rule, and he was able to come back. Brett had lost all this weight because he was going on with his life. He was down to like 240 pounds, 250 pounds as a tackle. And the Eagles were like, all right, now we can sign him. We can get him going in the right direction. They're saying, but he's got to get the weight room. He's got to put the weight back on. He's got to get back to what he was as a player. And they were like, nobody's going to pick him up off waivers. And the Cardinals picked him up off waivers. And they were, you never know. But yeah, if the
didn't they lose Coyote Awashika also last year?
Yeah, but Coyote was, they were so deep. I mean, they couldn't. I don't think they were mad. They were. I don't want to use the word mad. They were They were surprised. They were surprised that someone claimed Todd because they really wanted to work with him. And you never know. It only takes one team, and you never know what they're thinking. But I would say odds, yeah, they'll get Trevor Reed on the practice squad. Yeah, no question.
Which will lend us to a lot of fun watching the 53-man roster. I know we're weeks away from. I know we got to go through the joint practices and the preseason games, which, yeah, that's will come down to a scrum for who's going to make those last couple of roster spots. How many offensive linemen do you think they're going to keep, Andrew?
9. I think they'll probably keep 9. I know one year they kept 8, which is extremely light for the Eagles. But as I see it, as I was sort of navigating through that, I think 9 would be the number I would circle.
All right. Jody's going down roster construction because I think it's way more interesting now since they changed the rules. And you have the 16-man practice squad. Plus, you can elevate guys. So I'm going to go on the other side of the football. How many linebackers they keeping? They don't have to keep linebackers. They can get them all on the practice squad, elevate them when they need them during the week. How many linebackers? Because if you keep less linebackers, that means you can keep an extra deep. They could go 11 deep on the deep. I talked about how much depth they have.
Oh yeah,
they might lose defensive linemen if they put them on waivers. They're not going to lose linebackers if they put these guys on waivers.
Yeah, when you're looking at someone like a Kyron Johnson or a Patrick Johnson or somebody like that, you don't want to risk losing them. And I think you can only really justify keeping 3 right now, John. 3 linebackers, maybe 4 if you want to go Sean.
And by the way, we're talking about off-ball linebackers because I have to clarify that because Andrew said Patrick Johnson.
No, I mean you could keep those guys
they're
on.
edge rushers. They're edge rushers.
Yeah.
I'm talking off-ball linebackers.
Yeah, I would always keep probably 3, maybe 4. But then you would be able to afford, which is what I was going to, you'd be able to keep a guy like maybe a Kyron Johnson or a Patrick Johnson by going later elsewhere, who I do think have a little bit more upside, considerably more upside than someone maybe like a Sean Bradley or Davion Taylor at this point.
Right. I asked John this earlier. Everyone is taking notice of the contract that Nick Morrow signed, and it just kind of stands there jumps out like a sore thumb. 0 guaranteed dollars, which gives them uber flexibility with how they handle them. Let's say that Christian Ellis legitimately beats him out. Would they keep Morrow around as a backup linebacker, or would they say, he is what he is, we know what he is, and he's not going to be a starter, so why would we keep him around just as a safety net? Would they keep a Bradley? Would they keep a Davion Taylor instead? It's the old story of if you aren't starting, you're departing. Could Morrow be on this team as a backup linebacker?
Yeah, Joe, that's interesting. Morrow to me seems like starter or bust, right? I mean, like when that signing happened to me, I didn't ever see a scenario where he would be the 3rd linebacker or a special team stalwart or anything like that. So I think if he doesn't win the job, I think kind of like what we saw with Eric Wilson, although Eric Wilson lasted a little bit longer, I think Morrow would be on his way out. But then you would almost certainly have to go outside the organization and add a player at the position because, I mean, Christian Ellis and Nakobe Dean are vastly unproven. I think Christian Ellis only played 22 defensive snaps in his career, Nakobe 34, and then beyond that, Sean Bradley's nothing more than a special teamer at this point.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting on Thursday because Christian Ellis took over for Nicholas Morrow with the first team. We'll see if that was just sort of a back and forth or if they're going to continue in that direction, because if they are, then I'm going to have to say goodbye to Nicholas Morrow. I got to, he's a nice guy, but I think you're right. But now that we're going down that route, Andrew, Big nickel. Sean Desai unveiled it yesterday. Kayvon Wallace playing linebacker. Terrell Edmonds playing linebacker. Cindy Brown playing linebacker on the second team at times. 3 safeties on the field at once. Is that their answer for the fact that they don't have the second all-ball linebacker?
It's interesting, but it's a risky proposition, and what's kind of funny is that Sidney Brown and Reed Blankenship and Kayvon Wallace aren't that much smaller than their two starting linebackers right now.
Well, Nicholas played safety in college, so he's a converted safety.
But I think that could be they might be trying it out right now to see if that's a viable option. But I really do think that you have to have two guys you can count on at least at the position, two playable guys at the linebacker spot in order to be a functional defense. I think that playing big nickel sort of puts a Band-Aid on a wound, but I don't know if that can be something that you rely on too heavily.
Andrew, you rightfully mentioned the very limited snaps that the two Eagle potential starting linebackers have had in the NFL, 30 some odd, 20 some odd for Ellis and for Dean, if those are the two guys who are your starters come week one. Let me give you another position where they could be counting on a guy who's done almost nothing in the National Football League at that position, and that's Zach Mack in the slot. He's been an outside corner both of his years in the NFL. I think I read today he's had all of 2 snaps in 2 years at the inside position. And we know if Maddox is healthy and fine, he's going to be there. And Zach Mack gets to stand on the sidelines and be a specials team star again. But we also know that Maddox goes down often with injuries. Any reservation about Zach Mack? They made the call before the season ever started. They're going to move him inside. I heard that he's looked good in practice, but that is an inexperienced guy who you could be having out there having to take all the snaps at that position. You got any concerns about Zach McPherson, Zach playing the slot, backing up Maddox this year for the Birds?
Well, I've always been higher on Zach McPherson the most coming out of Texas Tech. I always viewed him primarily as a slot defender, so I thought he was largely miscast playing the outside here in Philadelphia. Obviously, he didn't have a lot of opportunity to play on the outside, given the health of Steve Nelson, Darius Slay, and James Bradbury. But I will also say that I think his short area quickness, his toughness, and his football intellect really translate favorably to the slot position, and I'm interested to see what he's able to do in the preseason playing that role, because I think that he does have some traits, and I think that playing special teams has showed you that he has that he's really astute and he's physical, and I kind of want to see if that translates into a more prominent role defensively, because I think he's certainly going to have the opportunity.
I think Zach is pretty much locked in the slot now. They've made that move, and I'm with you. I've been talking about it for years. That's his more natural position. And the reason they feel comfortable doing it now is because they got a lot of darts at outside corner behind Slay and Bradbury. Starts with Calais Ringo. Greedy Williams is here. Josh Jobe now in his second season. Eli Ricks, everybody knows from his 5-star recruit days in Alabama. But you're a draft guy, Andrew.
Sure.
The best of them all, and it's only 4 practices, but the best of them all has been Mekhi Gardner. Wow, he's big, he's physical. He gets his hands on people at the line of scrimmage. He had the first woo hits at training camp with the pads on. He just lit up poor Charleston Rambo. They share the number 43. It was 43 on 43 crime. He has looked tremendous. And people say, well, he's undrafted, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't mean much. Well, they were saying the same thing about Reed Blankenship, and now Reed's entrenched. Entrenched as a starting safety on this team. What do you know? What did you think about Mekhi Gardner?
Well, what's interesting, John, is that when I was speaking to our friend Mike Gill at 97.3, when the undrafted free agents were being signed, everyone was making, a lot about the signing of Eli Ricks, given his pedigree and everything like that. But I said, keep an eye on Mekhi Gardner. He's actually a more viable roster candidate than Ricks, and I think that he could be a safety at the pro level. That being said, I love his versatility. I like his physicality. He's a smart player. He started out his career at Louisiana Lafayette, and I just really like the way that he approaches the game. He's like a bigger, more physical Josh Jobe. Josh Jobe was a tenacious player at Alabama, but I think that he embodies those traits. But he has a bigger skill set, and that he can also have provide positional versatility. I do think that he is going to be a factor, when they sort of crunch down those final numbers to make the team, to configure their final roster.
All right. This week, the Eagles unveiled and made available their Kelly Green jerseys. Will anyone, and they're already out.
Wait, what time is it? We made it 1:43.
2 days in, and they've already sold out the Kelly Green jersey. Shame on the Eagles and the manufacturing company, whatever. They didn't project the interest from Eagle Nation. When they get delivery number 2 and they have jerseys ready to go, and maybe they got a couple of these left and nobody wants to take them, is anybody grabbing number 10 for Aaron Sipas? Is that going to be a high demand jersey? Kelly Green number 10 for Aaron Sipas this year. John hasn't given us any punter breakdowns in a couple of days. So is there even a competition? Is this another one? Well, Sirianni will say, oh, it's a competition when it's not really a competition. Is there going to be a punter competition this summer?
Well, I think there will be, but you're always going to defer to the veteran who's done it before. I think Ty Zettner brings this. He brings a shine, being an undrafted rookie. You always want sometimes that shiny new toy is what everyone wants in there. But it comes down to, as John knows, not just the leg power, but also putting the ball where it needs to be situationally and things like that. And I think you won't really know what you have in Zettner until the preseason games. You know what Sipas is going to do. Unfortunately, on the game's biggest stage, he folded a little bit there. But I think the body of work, by and large, I think you feel more, if you're the Eagles, you'll probably feel more comfortable with Aaron Sipas back there as your punter.
Yeah, if Aaron Sipas loses the job to Ty Zettner, I'll wear one of those Kelly Green jerseys.
There you have it, John. And John's certainly not going to be wearing one of those.
Joe
jerseys.
Krause has got to give it to me, but I'm not buying one of those nonsense things. But and that's any jersey. Yeah, I'm not a jersey guy. But yeah, Aaron Sipas is destroying Ty Zettner.
And know what? Going into camp, everyone had Ty Zettner penciled in without seeing him, punt the ball at the
right.
And by the way, for people that don't know, Aaron Sipas got on the Eagles' radar because he was dueling with Jack Fox in Detroit in a training camp. Jack Fox, a Pro Bowl punter, really good. And he was holding up well against him. So he's always been a good camp guy. He's got a big leg. So the issue with him is obviously doing it on game day on a more consistent basis. And he might not be the punter. They might get somebody from somewhere else that I don't know of. Matt Ariza might come in. They might say, well, all right, we're going to go that direction. But it ain't going to be Ty Zettner beating out Aaron Sipas. I mean, they're different species as punters from what I can see to this point.
Yeah, I just don't see it. I never really saw it. I thought that they were going to give him an opportunity, but I never just saw it as a viable replacement for a veteran like Sipas.
All right, last one for me, and I know I'm going down a road that I probably shouldn't here, but I'll do it anyway. Whether it's guys on the stream here on our Birds 365 show, or my WIP phones, or John's favorite social media X or Twitter, or whatever the hell you want these days, people are already building up disdain for the Dallas Cowboys because Jerry Jones is running his mouth. And Jerry can open up mouth and insert foot with the best of them. He's already done that, pitting Micah Parsons against his holdout offensive lineman, Martin, who needs to get into camp ASAP, or saying that, did you two guys catch this? Jerry actually said this week when asked about putting Jimmy Johnson in the Ring of Honor down there in Dallas, we've got other coaches to consider. Yeah, Dave Campo and Jimmy Johnson.
Is Switzer in there?
Separated at birth with their accomplishments.
Switzer won the Super Bowl,
He won because he couldn't screw the team that Jimmy put together was so good that even Barry Switzer couldn't screw it up.
Dave Campo, no, that's a name.
Sorry about that for the Cowboy reference. But yesterday he said the Dallas Cowboys are better. He didn't say they're better than the Eagles. He said the Eagles, the Giants, and the Commanders better watch out because the Dallas Cowboys are better. I don't know if they are or aren't. Not with Zach Martin out of the lineup. I'll definitely say they're not as good. I know they improved at a couple of positions of need, cornerback, wide receiver, but they went backwards at tight end. I think they're going to miss Zeke Elliott. Any chance to get on Jerry Johnson's case, our stream, social media, WIP phones, people just wait to chomp at the bit to take a shot at Jerry. And, oh, by the way, Jerry took a shot at himself, idiot. Are the Cowboys better than they were last year, Andrew?
Listen, you guys know me by now. You know I'm going to call it down the line. Are they improved? Sure. Do I think that they're going to be able to get out of their own way long enough to see it through? Highly doubtful. I just don't think that there's the leadership that the Eagles have and the structure in place for them to really be able to see this thing through. And I ultimately think they're going to start out strong and they're going to be the darlings of the NFL for a while. But I think that as the season progresses and we get towards the winter months, you're going to start to see the house of cards start to fall down a little bit. And they're going to kind of do what they've always done in the December, January as of late. And I think that they're going to be a non-entity.
Ooh, non-entity. All right. Eagles fans are going to like you for that one. At Andrew DiCecco. Follow Andrew on X, no longer Twitter. I'll leave it with you here. Quez Watkins, Andrew, called himself elite yesterday. The Eagles have 3 elite receivers.
They have 2. Quez Watkins, for a player who deemed himself as elite, still has to stave off Olamide Zaccheaus, which right now he's doing so. But I mean, an elite player is a perennial 1,000 yarder, a guy that commands the ball in critical moments.
AJ Brown, that's an elite.
Yeah,
player.
That's an elite receiver.
Yeah.
So yeah. I love the confidence, and you hope that parlays into success, because I do think that he brings something to the offense that they don't already have, which is that deep threatening speed that teams have to account for. But he's got to put it out there on the field. He had a rough year last year, and it's ultimately about the bounce back. How are you going to do? Are you going to be able to gain the trust back of your quarterback in those moments when he throws the ball to you?
By the way, week 2 NFL this season. Cowboys versus New York Jets. Aaron Rodgers gets the sticker to his boy, Mr. McCarthy, again. He always seems to get up whenever they're playing McCarthy. So the Cowboys won't be spreading.
A lot of it's a revenge tour for Aaron Rodgers. He's got
a bunch.
He's got Mike McCarthy. He's got Sean Payton attacking his best little buddy in the corner. He's got to protect him. The big bully protecting the hapless nobody. Jody's going to have a lot of fun this year.
Yeah, motivated Aaron Rodgers. That's what the Jets needed, and they got it.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting. Week 6 is Eagles Jets, and I'll be up there at the Meadowlands. Andrew, great stuff. Appreciate you coming on board. We're certainly going to get you back on before the season gets underway. Thanks for jumping in this morning.
Always, anytime, guys.
Thanks, Andrew.
That's Andrew DiCecco from InsideTheBirds.com, the podcast as well. Check out Andrew's work on InsideTheBirds.com. All right, Johnny Mac, Jody Mac coming back. We still got a couple of minutes left to chop it up for you. John will be off to practice. You think the next 2 days, right? They're going to go
regular practice, they're definitely
2 days running?
2 days, back-to-back, first time this summer.
Actually have to work for a living. There's a unique thought for the Philadelphia.
It's a grind. I don't remember the
They're
old
grinding it out. Give the Birds some credit grinding out 2 practices.
It's still, by the way, Quez also said, man, getting the pads on. Quez is like 25, maybe. First time with pads on. He felt it. And they don't go 2-a-days anymore.
Did Mekhi Gardner line him up the same way he did the
No, Mekhi still, he's still on, working with the third team mostly. I can't believe they haven't. He's on the second team as well at times, but Quez is first team, so he doesn't. Sometimes they do 1 versus 2s, but I haven't seen that matchup yet.
No, nobody's put the wood to Quez just yet, but he's even though he's elite. He's working through some stuff because it was hard to practice with pads on. All right. He's McMullen. I'm McDonald. Come back. Mac and Mac could have put a bow in the show.